Daniel Carter adjusted his tie, catching his reflection in the mirror. It wasn't the tailored suit he usually wore as CEO of Carter Grand Hotels. Instead, he had chosen something simple: an off-the-rack button-down, slacks, and scuffed shoes. The disguise wasn't elaborate, but it didn't need to be. The only thing he truly had to change was how he was perceived. He glanced at his phone one last time. The alias on his application, David Collins, felt foreign, but it served its purpose. He took a breath, squared his shoulders, and stepped into one of his own hotels, not as its owner, but as a job applicant. The lobby hummed with the soft chatter of guests and the rhythmic clatter of luggage wheels against the marble floors. It was a beautiful space, designed to exude warmth and luxury. He had spent years building this company from the ground up, ensuring that every hotel under his name met a standard of excellence. Yet today, he wasn't here to admire his achievements. He was here to test the integrity of the people who ran it. Daniel walked up to the front desk. A receptionist greeted him with a polite but distant nod, her eyes flickering over him before looking away. "I'm here for an interview," he said, his voice even. "Of course," she replied. "Please take a seat. Mr. Wilkins will be with you shortly." He took a seat in the waiting area, adjusting his posture to make himself appear more at ease than he felt. His hands rested on his lap, but his fingers twitched. The waiting room wasn't crowded, just two other candidates, both taller, both sharply dressed. One of them, a broad-shouldered man with slicked-back hair, smirked as he scrolled through his phone. The other, a younger man in a navy suit, stretched his legs out confidently. Minutes stretched on before a door finally creaked open. Mark Wilkins, the hiring manager, stepped out. He was tall, well-built, with a self-assured smirk that suggested he had already made up his mind about the candidates before him. "Next," Mark called, scanning the room. His gaze settled on the tall man first. He lifted his chin, clearly expecting to be chosen. Instead, Mark's eyes flicked to Daniel. His brow arched, and for a moment there was a flicker of hesitation, just long enough for Daniel to notice. "You, David Collins, right?" Mark's tone was neutral, but his expression betrayed something else. Daniel nodded, rising to his feet. As he approached, he caught the barely perceptible shift in Mark's stance, a slight raising of his eyebrows, a quick scan from head to toe. It was subtle, but Daniel had encountered it before. That fleeting moment where someone assessed his height before deciding whether or not to take him seriously. Mark led him into the office, closing the door behind them. The room was unremarkable, a generic corporate space with a sleek desk and two chairs. "Have a seat," Mark said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Daniel complied, keeping his expression neutral. Mark leaned back, folding his arms. "So, David, tell me about yourself." Daniel had rehearsed his cover story, a man with experience in hotel operations, eager to prove himself. He spoke clearly, confidently. But as he spoke, Mark's eyes drifted. They didn't hold the engagement of someone listening intently. Instead, they had the passive detachment of someone who had already made up his mind. "Interesting," Mark said, though his tone suggested otherwise. He tapped his pen against the desk, then leaned forward slightly. "I have to ask, have you ever found that certain jobs require a certain presence?" Daniel tilted his head. "Presence? You know, stature, command. People tend to respond better to leadership figures who have a bit more presence in a room. Wouldn't you agree?" There it was. The coded language. The carefully chosen words that danced around the real message. Daniel kept his expression neutral. "I believe leadership comes from capability, not height." Mark nodded slowly, a smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. Sure. But in hospitality, especially in managerial roles, perception matters. Guests, staff, they look up to their leaders, literally and figuratively." He chuckled, as if expecting Daniel to share in the joke. Daniel's jaw tensed. He wasn't unfamiliar with this kind of bias. He had heard whispers of it even in board meetings, offhand remarks about how a taller executive had a stronger presence. But hearing it so blatantly now, from one of his own hiring managers, was something else entirely. Mark exhaled, setting the pen down. "Listen, David. You seem like a nice guy, and you have experience, but I just don't think this would be the right fit for you." The words were polite, but the dismissal was absolute. Daniel leaned forward slightly. "You don't think I can handle the role?" "It's not that," Mark said with an easy smile. "I just think our team would benefit from someone who can really command the space. Someone who fits the image we're looking for." Daniel studied him for a long moment. He could call him out right now. He could reveal who he was, watch the color drain from Mark's face. But that would be too easy. Instead, he nodded. "I understand." Mark looked relieved. "Good. Well, I appreciate you coming in." He stood, extending a hand. Daniel shook it, keeping his grip firm. As he turned to leave, Mark's voice carried one final remark. "Between you and me," he said with a smirk, "maybe try a place where physical presence isn't such a big deal." Daniel didn't respond. He stepped out of the office, walking past the waiting candidates, past the receptionist, out into the lobby. But as he neared the exit, he caught something: laughter. Faint, but unmistakable. Curious, he glanced to the side. The office door was ajar. Mark was inside, talking to someone. "Can you believe that guy?" Mark chuckled. 5'4" and applying for a leadership role? What was he thinking? A second voice laughed along with him. "Yeah, no way. Customers would never take him seriously." Daniel stopped in his tracks. There it was, the confirmation. The unfiltered truth behind the rejection. He inhaled slowly, then exhaled. He wasn't angry. Not yet. What he felt was something colder, sharper. Mark thought this was over. He thought he had dismissed just another unremarkable candidate. He had no idea what was coming. Daniel stepped out of the hotel, but he didn't leave. Not really. His footsteps carried him down the block, yet his mind remained trapped inside that office, replaying every word, every smirk, every dismissive glance. The bias wasn't just an undercurrent. It was the foundation of how Mark Wilkins operated. And if it was coming from someone in charge of hiring, how many others had suffered the same quiet rejection? How many promising candidates had walked out of that room, their potential dismissed over something as arbitrary as height? The realization didn't just anger him, it set something deeper alight. This wasn't just about him. If Mark had treated Daniel this way, there was no doubt he had done the same to others. The difference was, Daniel had power, and he intended to use it. He took a breath, pulling out his phone. A few taps later, he was scrolling through the hotel's employee records, cross-referencing names with application logs. As CEO, he had access to everything. What he found made his stomach tighten. Candidate after candidate, all rejected. The pattern was subtle, but unmistakable. Men under a certain height, women who didn't fit a commanding look, brushed aside for reasons that were vague at best, outright discriminatory at worst. Meanwhile, those with more traditionally authoritative statures? A significantly higher acceptance rate, regardless of experience. Mark had been shaping this hotel's team in his own narrow vision, and no one had stopped him. Until now. Daniel tightened his grip on his phone. A confrontation would be satisfying, but it wouldn't be enough. Mark would deny it, spin it, maybe even talk his way out of it. No, this needed to be bigger. It needed to be undeniable. The next morning, Daniel returned, not as an applicant, but as an observer. He entered the hotel dressed in casual business attire, blending in among the guests. The lobby was alive with movement, a carefully orchestrated dance of bellhops, front desk attendants, and concierge staff. Mark was there, standing near the reception, exuding the same air of casual arrogance. Daniel took a seat in the lounge, close enough to observe. It didn't take long before he saw it unfold again. A young woman arrived for an interview. She was poised, well-dressed, and confident. But she was also petite. Daniel watched as Mark greeted her with a polite but noticeably brief handshake. He led her to the office, and within minutes, she was walking back out. Her expression controlled, but her posture betraying her disappointment. Minutes later, another applicant arrived. This one was tall, broad-shouldered, with a deep voice that carried across the room. Mark's demeanor shifted. He smiled, engaged, leaned in with interest. 30 minutes later, they shook hands, and Daniel didn't need to hear the conversation to know how it had ended. His suspicions were no longer suspicions. They were facts. And he had seen enough. That afternoon, he made a call to Erica Vasquez, the hotel's regional director. She was sharp, meticulous, and someone Daniel trusted to do what was right. When he explained what had happened, she didn't hesitate. "Let's catch him in the act," she said. The next day, a hidden camera was placed in Mark's office. Erica would oversee the hiring process remotely, watching every interaction, every decision. They wouldn't just gather evidence, they would corner him with the truth. Daniel arrived early, positioning himself discreetly near the lounge once more. The day's interviews began, and with each passing hour, Mark made it easier to incriminate himself. He dismissed another candidate, too soft-spoken, not enough presence. He practically handed a job to another, tall, loud, confident. And then, the final test. A man walked in, slightly older, refined, a strong resume in hotel management. But he wasn't imposing. He was lean, of average height, and carried himself with quiet confidence rather than showy bravado. Daniel watched intently as Mark greeted him. The initial exchange was cordial, but soon Daniel saw the familiar signs. Mark's interest waning, his enthusiasm cooling. The conversation was clipped, short. Moments later, the man walked out, his brow furrowed in frustration. That was it. The final proof. Mark, oblivious to what had just transpired, leaned back in his chair, stretching with satisfaction. He had just shaped his ideal team. A team built on his standards. Then his office phone rang. Daniel could see the confusion on Mark's face as he picked up. A few seconds of silence, then a stiffening of his shoulders. He spoke cautiously. "Now?" "Sure, I can meet in the conference room." Daniel stood, moving toward the hallway. It was time. By the time Mark entered the conference room, Erica was already there. Her expression was unreadable, her posture straight-backed, commanding. Daniel, leaning against the far wall, remained silent as Mark stepped inside. Mark gave a hesitant smile. "Hey, Erica. What's going on?" She gestured to a chair. "Sit." Mark's smile faltered, but he complied. Erica reached into a folder and pulled out a printed transcript. "You recognize these?" Mark scanned the page, brow furrowing. "What is this?" "Your interview transcripts," she said smoothly. "From the past week. We've been reviewing them." Daniel watched as Mark shifted in his seat, his posture losing its usual ease. "Okay. And?" Erica didn't answer right away. Instead, she slid a tablet across the table. "Play the video." Mark hesitated, then tapped the screen. As the footage rolled, his face drained of color. His own voice filled the room. "You know, stature. Command. People tend to respond better to leadership figures who have a bit more presence, wouldn't you agree?" Daniel didn't look away. He wanted to see the exact moment Mark realized his game was up. The recording continued, playing back every thinly veiled comment, every biased rejection. By the time it ended, Mark was stiff, his hands clasped together. This is out of context." "Is it?" Erica's voice was cool, controlled. "Because we also reviewed your hiring records. And the pattern is very clear." Mark let out a short, nervous laugh. "Look, you know how it is. Some people they don't have that leadership quality. It's not discrimination, it's about choosing the right fit." Daniel pushed off the wall, stepping forward at last. "Funny. Because I was one of those people." Mark's head snapped toward him, eyes widening. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, realization sinking in. Daniel let the silence stretch before speaking again. "I walked into your office as David Collins, and you dismissed me before I even had a chance. Not because of my skills. Not because I wasn't qualified, but because I didn't fit your idea of what a leader should look like. Mark's throat bobbed as he swallowed. I didn't know. That's the problem, Daniel cut in. His voice was calm, but firm. You didn't bother to know. You just assumed. Mark's breathing quickened. He looked to Erica, searching for an ally, but found none. Erica set her hands on the table. I think we've seen enough. The weight of those words hung heavy in the room. Daniel didn't need to say anything else. This wasn't over. But Mark's time at this company was. Mark's face had drained of all color. His mouth opened slightly as if scrambling for a defense, but none came. The weight of the evidence sat between them, undeniable. His own words, captured in crystal clarity, left no room for explanation or excuse. The silence in the conference room stretched, thick with the weight of realization. Daniel remained standing, his gaze steady. He had seen many reactions in his years as CEO: denial, anger, bargaining. He knew what was coming before Mark even spoke. This was never about discrimination, Mark finally said, forcing a chuckle that sounded weak even to his own ears. Come on, you're taking this the wrong way. I was just trying to build a strong team, a team that commands respect. That's not a crime. Erica's expression remained unreadable. No, Mark. It's not a crime. But it is a violation of our hiring policies, not to mention unethical. She tapped the folder in front of her. And this is enough for legal action if we chose to pursue it. Mark's smile twitched, faltering. Legal action? His voice wavered, the first crack in his confidence appearing. Daniel didn't look away. He wanted him to feel it. The fear, the uncertainty, the moment when the illusion of control slipped from his grasp. He had built his authority on arrogance, on the belief that no one would question him. But now, he was cornered. I built this company on merit, Daniel said, his voice steady but firm. Not on appearances. Not on arbitrary standards of who looks the part. And yet, you decided to rewrite that philosophy to fit your own biases. He exhaled slowly. I trusted you, Mark. I trusted you to be fair, to represent this company with integrity. Instead, you've turned away talent that could have strengthened this hotel, because of your narrow view of what leadership should look like. Mark sat frozen, his fingers gripping the edge of the table. His bravado had vanished, replaced by the unmistakable look of a man who knew he had lost. Erica pushed the tablet closer to him. We'll be reporting this to HR and the legal team. But we're giving you a choice. Mark's eyes flickered with something unreadable. A choice. You can step down quietly, Erica said. Resign, effective immediately. If you do, this won't go public. No lawsuits, no formal charges. You walk away with whatever dignity you have left. Mark's jaw tensed. And if I refuse? Daniel's voice was calm. Then we take this to the board, to the press if necessary. The evidence speaks for itself. This won't just be a termination, it will be a career-ending scandal. Every future employer, every industry connection, will know exactly why you were let go. Mark swallowed hard. The calculation in his eyes was clear. Resignation meant damage control, a chance to salvage whatever reputation he had left. Fighting this would mean complete ruin. For the first time, he looked small. His shoulders sagged slightly. He exhaled, then gave a stiff nod. Fine. I'll resign. His voice was barely above a whisper. Erica nodded once. I'll have the paperwork sent to your email. You'll have until the end of the day to sign it. Mark stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. He hesitated for a moment, as if searching for some final word, some parting shot. But there was nothing left to say. Without another glance, he turned and walked out of the room, his steps quick, almost frantic. Daniel watched him go, but there was no satisfaction in the victory, only a quiet certainty that this had been necessary. The door clicked shut behind Mark. Erica let out a breath, shaking her head. I knew he was arrogant, but this? Unbelievable. Daniel nodded, but his mind was already on what came next. We need to fix this. Immediately. That evening, he personally reviewed every application Mark had rejected. Each name was a reminder of the opportunities stolen, the careers stalled before they had even begun. One by one, he made the calls himself. Hello, this is Daniel Carter, CEO of Carter Grand Hotels. I'd like to personally invite you back for an interview. You were unfairly dismissed, and I want to make it right. Some were hesitant, others shocked, but each response carried a thread of something fragile but real, hope. Days passed, then weeks. The hotel saw new hires, a team built on skill, not surface-level assumptions. The culture began to shift. Then, the unexpected happened. An email arrived in Daniel's inbox. The subject line was simple. Thank you. He opened it. Mr. Carter. I don't know if you remember me, but I was one of the candidates Mark rejected. When I left that interview, I felt like I'd never be seen for my abilities, only for what I lacked. I was ready to give up on this industry altogether. Then you called. You gave me a second chance. And now, I'm proud to say I just finished my first week working for Carter Grand Hotels. For the first time, I feel valued for who I am, not how I look. I just wanted to say, thank you. You changed more than just my career. You changed how I see myself. Daniel sat back, reading the message twice. A slow, satisfied smile crossed his lips. This wasn't just about exposing Mark. It had never been about revenge. It was about something bigger, restoring faith, correcting an injustice, ensuring that no one else walked away feeling like they weren't enough. And in that moment, Daniel knew. He hadn't just won. He had made a difference.